The man, the myth,
Bruh.
the legend, Kurosaki Ichigo, Death God, Style God, Riz God. How can you even hate on this man? In this video, I'll be talking about what makes Ichigo such a great and nuanced protagonist in comparison to his contemporaries. I'll be addressing some misconceptions about his personality, and yeah, I think we should start there. His personality. You see, Ichigo is somewhat a laid-back person and often quite mature for a 15-year-old. I would argue it's due to the realistic approach Kubo takes in writing Ichigo as a character. I think he also appears this way because of his mother's death, but we'll talk more on that later. Ichigo's desire to save people is born out of a negative emotion. This one goal we see Ichigo having almost throughout the series is what a lot of people call him bland for, but let's take a closer look. He is someone who grew to want to protect the lives of everyone, even that of his enemies. Ichigo's goals as an individual center around preserving life, but there's a twist to it. The twist here is Ichigo's main goal of saving people is born out of fear. That is the negative emotion I was referring to earlier. A fear which is characterized from witnessing the death of his mother. One of the big reasons he keeps saving people is because he feels the guilt of letting his mom die. We know this isn't his fault, but he still feels responsible, which is something Ichigo critics tend to overlook. And due to the fact that he doesn't have any lofty goals, like becoming Soul King or surpassing all the other death gods, or maybe even becoming head captain, it makes his aspirations belittling and not really all that exciting. Look at Naruto and Luffy, for example. Naruto is an orphan from the hood, hated by everyone for having that dog inside him. But he wants to become Hokage, a very epic dream that is seemingly impossible for a kid like him, creating a very dynamic story. Then Luffy, a relentless pirate who wants to find the ultimate treasure, the One Piece, and become Pirate King in the process. It's a bold and captivating dream that in all honesty is narratively thrilling and exciting, and the same goes with Naruto's goals and dreams. When Luffy and Naruto have outwardly grandiose dreams, Ichigo's aspirations are deeply internal and very, very personal. It doesn't go to say Luffy and Naruto won't save those they love if they have to, but it's a different matter altogether when it is your primary motivation, especially when it is linked to a catastrophic or traumatic event. In this case, would be his mother dying while he was at such a young age. His fear of not being able to protect his loved ones, particularly in the aftermath of his mother's tragic death, drives his actions. This fear, while not outwardly flashy as seeking to be, the Pirate King or Hokage status, shapes his character in a very profound way. With all that said, I think this makes Ichigo a very dynamic and complex person, like most human beings. Which brings me to the next point, his powers. When it comes to Ichigo's powers and his fighting style, it is as plain gets. The world of the Soul Society has so many crazy powers. Look at the former head captain Yamamoto. His Bankai lets him use 4 different abilities, where you even have people that can turn their swords into flower petals, and others who can lower their temperature below subatomic levels. Then we go back to Ichigo and we see that his Bankai is just a slimmer sword, and he just uses the same Getsuga Tenshu almost throughout the series, and his Getsuga Tenshu is just basically an enormous release of Ryatsu. In my opinion, it doesn't get any more basic than that. Sure, his power differs as the story progresses, but his powers don't really change throughout the series, especially for the, first part of Bleach. And also, this does not include his Hollow and Quincy powers. I'm strictly talking about his Soul Reaper powers here, because I feel like without his Hollow and Quincy powers, there will be less spice to the story. But the reason why I think Ichigo has such a simplistic set of powers is because we mostly see Ichigo as, a very, very simplistic person. So why not give him simplistic powers as well? And the funny thing about him is he learns how to adapt in fights. He knows how to use his sword very, very well. So he doesn't really need, more flashy powers or, more flashy abilities, because all he really needs to do is move really fast and swing his sword really well. And it gets the job done for him at least. And in retrospect, I think it's really unique how simple his powers are compared to everyone else. I mean, if you think about it, he probably has the simplest set of Soul Reaper powers in the entire series. Another point I often see is Ichigo's lack of character development. And this is simply not true, because Ichigo has a plethora of character development throughout the series, and if I start to talk about all of them in this particular video, I'm probably going to have a 1 hour long video. But let me just talk about a few moments we saw him grow as a character. One of the best examples I can think of right now is when he was confronting Aizen. This was by no way an easy task for Ichigo, who just witnessed him beat everyone, including those who are stronger than he was. Ichigo had no personal vendetta against Aizen, which was a very big catalyst for allowing Ichigo fight anyone he fought throughout the series, you know. And the only reason he fought Aizen was because the fate of the world relied on it. Think about that for a sec. The fate of the world was put on the shoulders of a 15-year-old. We would see during that time he was fighting Aizen, he had to resort to sneak attacks, something he almost never does. He constantly had doubts of fighting Aizen almost throughout the fight. But after he obtained his Dangai form, we saw he had no fear whatsoever from that point on. And the reason this happened was because of the internal conflict he had with himself. Because he had gotten over that fear of beating Aizen in exchange for, you know, a deeper sadness, which was the acceptance of losing his Soul Reaper powers in exchange for beating someone who he really had no personal vendetta against. And you could see it, you could even see it in his speech. And I think one of the moves that he, you know, displayed during this time was something like a night sky with no moon or something. I really can't remember because I'm saying off the top of my head. But it goes something along those lines. And, you know, what's the night sky without a moon in this context? Even in the arcs that followed this, we saw that Ichigo really struggled with, you know, losing his powers, because his powers at this point had become a part of him. It was part of his identity. So losing his powers here was like losing part of his identity. And speaking on identity, we all know the fact that Ichigo hated hollows because of their destructive behavior. In the first part of the series, he absolutely despised hollows, only for him to later find out that he was a hollow himself. And this brought a lot of internal conflict for him, because he never wanted to accept that side of himself. But eventually he had to accept it, because whether he liked it or not, the hollow was him and he was the hollow. But does him being a hollow make him a bad person? No, he wasn't a bad person, because the hollows are just another race. Sure, the majority of the hollows are bad, but it doesn't mean he has to be bad when he is a hollow. And I think it's something he had to realize for himself, and that was what allowed him to, you know, really accept that part of himself. And also because he needed a massive bump in power, because he was much too weak at the time. But yeah, this is a these are very good examples of character development and character growth. There are so many other examples like this, but I think this should do. By the way, if you've come this far in the video and you're enjoying it, consider liking and subscribing. It's absolutely free and it's a reversible action. Plus, it helps us a ton. Also, comment any misunderstood character you think we should cover. Now, for my final Getsuga Tenshu, and the real reason Ichigo is misunderstood is because he had the best swag among the big three in a time where his swag probably wasn't considered, you know, very stylish. Come on, what does Naruto have going for him aside his orange jumpsuit and his rusty ass headband? He even got Yoruba tribal marks all over his face. Well, on a more serious note, I love the fact that Kubo made dressing styles in Bleach so dynamic. We hardly saw Ichigo repeat clothes, and ever so often we saw some very phenomenal dripped out versions of Ichigo. Anyways, that brings us to the end of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We have a video where we investigated some of the biggest frauds in the big three, so you can watch that video if you follow the link on the screen right here. And yeah, see y'all in the next one.